Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Radio Oz with Metal Mike. This Tuesday evening, we welcome vocalist extraordinaire from Sacred Warrior, Deny the Fallen, and currently Worldview, Rey Parra. Welcome to the show, Ray.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Oh, I appreciate you. Watching your show quite frequently makes me feel jealous sometimes.
You'll get there.
I believe it over time. I think I will. But anyways, welcome to the show. I've introduced you with the bands you're formerly in, currently in, however we want to describe it. Introduce yourself a little better than I did, if you don't mind.
My name is Rey Parra. No, I mean, what else is there to say? I'm Rey Parra. I'm lead vocalist for Sacred Warrior. I was in Deny the Fallen and now also Worldview. And just loving Jesus, man, and loving music and loving doing my podcast. And thanks for having me on. And let's have some fun.
All righty. Well, let's go back in time to, 1988?
Yes, sir.
Let's discuss that a little bit. Tell us, you're all from middle of Illinois at that time, correct?
Yeah, correct. We were all in West Chicago, Illinois. And we was me, Tony, and Bruce, and a couple other guys. Started out as a band called Nomad. We weren't even a Christian band at the time. And through a series of events, Bruce got saved, and then Tony got saved, and then I got saved, and then we're like, man, we can't serve two gods, and we ended up stopping Nomad and just wanted to really get close to God. So we stopped playing music altogether. We got hooked up with the Warehouse Church in Aurora, and we took like a year sabbatical. And then Pastor Randy Shove was like, hey, man, I got somebody coming to open up. Somebody coming to play here, a band called White Cross. You guys want to open up for them? And we're like, well, we don't even have a band yet, but we put together some guys and we did some things. We ended up opening for White Cross, and Caesar Kalinowski, their manager, was there. And that night he said, I want to sign you guys. I want to give you a 5-album deal in 5 years. And we're like, wow, we weren't even really a band at the time. We just started out. And there we were, he's put us together, and the rest is history. We did it.
You still there?
I'm here, yeah. Hey, guys, we keep losing Metal Mike. I'm going to take over here for a minute. How you doing tonight? Any questions? I don't know what happened, Mike.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
There you go. I was just trying to take over your show.
Yeah, my mom messaged me.
That's great.
Anyways, so through Caesar, that was on. He had an independent. He's had a couple different independent labels at the time, didn't he?
Yeah. He had Frontline Records, and he had the initial label was man, I can't even. I'm having an old person moment here. I can't even remember the original label he had. It's been 40 some years, but
yeah. That's what I'm saying. I like I said, trying to remember everything I can remember, trying to go back what I remember in interviews that I've read through time, going over things. But Rebellion came out in '88, and it took you. It got you a pretty good following, and then Master's Command. I think took you to a whole different level. I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, correct, man. Correct.
And that was Roger Martinez helping produce that, or you just
no. The only thing we were on tour during the Rebellion album, and Vengeance we were playing together. We were doing shows together, and I remember we were in a rehearsal one night. We started playing The Flood, and we're like, man, that'd be cool if Roger would sing a part on here. So I'm like, hey, Roger, you want to try singing this part on that? He's like, well, I don't really sing like you. I do that. I'm like, yeah, do it, bro. So we did it during rehearsal, and we're like, you know what? Let's record it that way. And we ended up recording it that way, and he recorded that part for that song. And because during our tour, we were in California and all over. So when we were in LA, we ended up recording that record and ended up doing that song, which is, why Roger sang on that.
Okay.
Yeah. But he wasn't part of production or writing or not. He just that part. And as a matter of fact, if you remember, the dueling guitar solos was Larry Farkas and Bruce Swift. So Larry was on that as well.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people forget about that. They talk about Roger singing, but Larry also play the guitar. Him and Bruce shared, solos going back and forth.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I think that was the album, like I said, that really took you guys to a new level, because I mean, you had Master's Command, the lead track, and then you had Do on a Hymn, and everybody's like, "Hey, you got a metal hymn."
Yeah, man.
And
would you believe that hymn, Holy Holy, we end every concert with that, even still today. We end all our shows with that song. Yep.
So, but yeah, that was between that and Jehovah Jireh off of the Deliverance's first self-titled is how I broke into some of the things with my church at the time to say, hey, this stuff is legit. Here you go.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So, and in that time frame, we've discussed this beforehand, is everybody was saying he's a Jeff Tate copycat. You were the Queensryche of the Christian metal scene. And what was your first reaction to hearing that? Because Jeff's a phenomenal vocalist. And we all have known that since back in the 80s, and he still is to this day, in my opinion. But
yeah, I remember we went up to Wisconsin to a little bar to see this band called Queensryche. And they were touring their Queen of the Reich album, right? And I stood front row. We got there, and there was curtains drawn, and I could hear this guy behind the stage going, just like, I was like, wow, what is that? Right. And then they came out and they started with Queen of the Reich and Child of Fire. And I was like, wow, man. I said, I want to sing like that guy. Cause at that point I was just developing my style, which is why ultimately Warrior ended up sounding a lot like Queensryche, because I mean, let's face it, everybody loved Queensryche. Everybody wanted to be Queensryche when they were just coming out. We didn't want to be Queensryche clones. And I think we did a good job of not being Queensryche clones, but we wanted to have the Queensryche feel, and we wanted to have the Queensryche, the way that they would write songs and arrange them. And obviously I wanted to have the tone that Jeff Tate had. So we went from there and we just ran with it, man.
Yeah, because then you went into two back-to-back almost one full circle concept album, and then Obsessions was pretty close.
Yeah.
Two great albums. Like I said, that we said offline, those first four albums are so, and especially the last two, were so underrated. Mm-hmm. After everybody said you were a clone, especially with concept albums after Queensryche released two back to back as well. I think, and then everybody, because I mean, it happens unfortunately in the Christian scene. Once people start finding a fault, and that's I think what they found at that point. Mm-hmm. And to me, there wasn't a fault. It was the lyrics were there. They were different. They weren't as blunt as the first two albums.
Right.
But if you really look at the lyrics, you were dealing with some harsh undertones that even to this day, both of those albums lyrically fit today's life.
Yeah. So we wanted
more so than they did 35 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? We've always been known as a ministry type of band, and we wanted to continue that without being repetitive. You can only say, Jesus loves you, turn or burn so many ways. And people are like, yeah, here's another one. But we wanted to talk about topics. I had met some people that had been abused by family members and this and that. And I'm like, man, let's write about that. And I started writing stuff about that. Then Glenn Kaiser allowed us to go to Japuza, Jesus People USA, and interview some of the people that were living there. And a lot of them were like, hey, that's me, man. My dad abused me. My brother abused me. My mom, that's me, my cousin, my uncle. And it brought light to so much junk that was going on at the time that was really taboo for Christians to write about, I guess. And we dared to, and we said, you know what, we're going to do this. And people are either going to love us or they're going to hate us for it. But the main thing was we wanted to say what we wanted to say, and really accept the consequences of whether Sacred Warrior was going to go big or not. Main reason I believe, and we believe, that we never really went mainstream was because of that, because of the bluntness about talking about the Lord the way we did. Stryper always did it in a way that it was sing-along, happy kind of stuff, which, by the way, I just got done interviewing Michael Sweet for my show. That'll be released in 2 weeks. but their songs, everything was just really, we just didn't want to stop. We wanted to do what we were going to do. And I believe that's why we never made mainstream. However, there was a point where we were mixing, I think, might have been the Obsessions. No, it was a Rebellion record. Capitol Records were at the record label mixing their John Gowdy was mastering our album, and he was one of the main guys for Capitol Records. And he says, hey, he told Caesar, he said, I want to buy this band from you and put them on Capitol Records. And at that time, you had Poison on there, you had Motley Crue and stuff like that. And Caesar's like, well, no. He says, if you want Sacred Warrior, you got to take my whole heavy metal catalog. That would be Barren Cross, that'd be Deliverance, that'd be Sacred Warrior. And they're like, we don't want those guys. We just want Sacred Warrior. And he didn't make the deal. So I think God had another plan, because I think that would have changed a lot for us.
Oh, they probably, and unfortunately, with that market, might have been saying, hey, can't Jesus every song?
Yeah, of course. Of course, yeah.
Especially at that time frame, like you said, Stryper wasn't, they were blunt, but they weren't,
right.
They were, they had In God We Trust, they had Tell With the Devil, but you go in a few other songs, maybe a third of the songs on each album were straight blunt Christian songs. But you look at a Free, Calling on You, there's not, even honestly, their biggest hit is not overtly religious.
Correct.
That's how it crossed over.
Correct.
And I mean, that's just the way it was. They were sanitized to a point. Even though Michael won't say they were. I mean, they were. That's just the way. But to reach the market, that's how they had to be.
Yeah, and for us, it really didn't even matter. We were just like, this is what we're feeling. This is what we're going to do. We didn't know whether it was right or wrong. We just did what we felt we had to do, and that's what we did. That's what we still do. Yeah.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. I've always wondered this. During that time, that 4-album cycle, you were one of the only bands on Intense that never released a music video.
Right.
What was there a reason behind that, or just they didn't think you all deserved one?
No, there was money. Yeah. We were on a tight budget for the whole album and everything. They spent a lot of money on production and stuff, which in my opinion, I thought the Master's Command album sounded terrible. I was really disappointed the whole time we were at the studio, and which in fact is where we met Ken Tamplin, because he stayed at the house where the studio was for Intense Records in California, and I remember going way back then, just as they're mixing the songs going, that sounds terrible. And, they're putting all kinds of money into it, but I thought the production was terrible, man. Even for back then.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Well, I always wondered that, because like I said, everybody else was putting them out. Tourniquet put them out, Deliverance, and even on the Hot Metal Summer compilations, had songs on, but it wasn't. You were part of the Big Four at that time, but then you weren't. You know what I mean? Going back to what you were just saying. Yeah. You were like the redheaded stepchild, or or something like that, as the old saying goes, that you were the one that should have been you were popular, but for some reason the label wasn't pushing you as much as Tourniquet, Deliverance, Vengeance, and then Die Happy. And Die Happy fell into that cycle too, because they weren't Vengeance. Everybody was wanting Vengeance, Vengeance. And I got a Die Happy tattoo.
Oh yeah. If you think about it, Tourniquet, Vengeance, Deliverance, Sacred Warrior. We were prog metal. All those other three guys, they were pretty heavy, not prog metal. They were more thrash, So those were the ones that they were pushing. I guess that was a new market or whatever. But you know what? If you ask any one of us in the band, doesn't matter. We don't even care.
Well, I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying it was kind of weird that when Rebellion came out, you were, right there in the mix. Master's Command in the mixed. Yeah. And as soon as that died off, and then you released, like I said, the 2 concept albums, I think, like I said, to me, like I said, I love all those 4 albums. Sure. Wicked Generation, like you just said a minute ago, spoke to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a person that when a preacher preaches at me, I want him to step on my toes, and that was stepping on toes.
Yeah, man, for sure.
You know, you're talking to the people of the streets, and that's where there's a fine line that churches don't want to hear it, but they need to be telling their people this because they're not going to reach you, and those people are not going to walk in the church. You know,
That's right.
Witnesses by Night is one of my all-time favorite songs from anybody.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a mantra of mine. Even though I'm not a musician, I want to go into the streets and reach.
Yeah,
and
man.
I'm going to reach is by sharing music that somebody likes. That be it you guys or even the Vengeance and Deliverance and all them. There was a point for those. You know, had the Deliverance first album was a Metallica clone to a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
Vengeance was Slayer. You know, it's that concept.
Yep.
So that's how I reached people back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Barren Cross was Iron Maiden, you know.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So fast forward, we went through. So you're after Obsessions, you guys disappeared, and you yourself completely disappeared for what 10 years at that point.
Correct.
Released a couple songs, and then another 10 years went off, and you were gone for 20.
Yeah.
So in that 20 years, where did you disappear?
So I remember we were in Europe. I don't know where but we were doing a show, and I was backstage. I was in the green room, and I'm like, man, I'm really missing my wife and my son. You know, we had a new baby, and I only knew him his first year of his life. I maybe knew him 3 or 4 months.
Oh man.
You know, and I got my wife, and I'm like, gosh, man. I mean, when I started Warrior, Tony Bruce and I actually started Warrior. We're like, let's go out, we'll do this, you know. Then I met Trissy, and then we got married, and then started having kids. And, you know, I'm 5 years into it, and I'm like, man, I'm really missing my wife and my kid, you know. And I was in the green room. I remember getting on my knees, and I said, Lord, what am I to do? What am I to do? And just as clear as day, I heard the Lord say to me, your family, then your ministry. And I had it all backwards. I had it God, my ministry, then my family. My family was suffering. And I remember having conversations with my wife about, you know, I was in church. You know, I'd call her, nobody even said hi to me because you weren't with me. They didn't know who I was. I mean, stuff like that, just like, heartbreaking, you know. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to call Jimmy from the label. I said, Jimmy, I said, I need to get off this tour, and this is going to be my last show, or this is going to be my last tour. No more records for me. And I really feel I got a release from the Lord. And Jimmy, if you ask Ken Tamplin, he even mentioned it when I interviewed him. He doesn't let nobody off the label. He said, Ray, who am I to argue with God? He goes, go. He goes, but know this. There's an unwritten rule. When you quit a label, when you walk away from a label, 10 years, you're blackballed. You're blackballed for 10 years. I'm like,
oh, man.
I don't care. I said, I don't care. So I went on stage and I sang, and like halfway through, I made an announcement to the audience and to the band that was going to be my last tour. And they're all like looking at me like, what are you talking about, man? You know, and then afterwards I talked to them and I said, guys, listen, I had to do it this way because I know y'all would have talked me out of it. And they would have. We had that kind of a bond as brothers, you know, they would have talked me out of it. So I had to do it that way. And then I quit. So we finished that tour, and then I packed up my bags and left, as they say, you know, and I just focused on my family, you know, church, my kids, you know, work. And then like 10 years later, almost within that week, I got the phone call. Hey, it's been 10 years. You guys want to do a reunion record? And so I reached out to all the guys, and they're like, well, I don't know, maybe, yeah. You know, they talked about it. We tossed the idea around for a while and then decided we'll do it. So we ended up doing a greatest hits, but we ended up doing a couple of shows at Cornerstone, and I don't even remember where else. And then we did a Cornerstone live record, you know? And so, I mean, that was all right. And I just, even at that point, I wasn't just not feeling going back, you know? So we did that, and then we were pretty much done again. And then right around 2016, Rick Macias had come out. Him and I had been talking on the phone a lot. And he said, hey, Ray, he says, I've been talking with George Ochoa. I'm not in Warrior anymore either. He says, why don't me, you, and George write a record and release it? He goes, we can be heavier and da 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 da. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's talk about it. We tossed the idea around for a while, and nothing ever came of it. And then shortly after that, Rick came to visit me here in Florida, and he died while he was visiting me here.
Oh man, I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude, he had a heart attack and he died. And
I knew how he died, but I just didn't realize he was with you.
Yeah, he was here visiting me, man. And then I don't know, a few weeks later, I called George. Actually, George called me. I remember I was at the Dunkin' Donuts drive-up getting coffee, and my phone rings, and it's George. I'm like, what's up, George? He's like, hey, man. He goes, I think in honor of Rick, we should do an album. And I said, all right, let's do it. So we got together, put together Worldview, and we did the first record. And great album. Again, didn't get the push like we felt it should have. And then, so we didn't do much after that. I think we did 3 or 4 shows. And then shortly after that, a couple of years later, John and I started talking, we should do an album called Deny the Fallen, a little heavier, a little more, and John was really into that style. I said, well, you need to teach me how to sing that, because I can't sing that, and he did, man. And we wrote that record and put that one out, and that did really good. Then we wrote the second one, and then just, not many shows came out of it, bands like us just starting out again. It doesn't matter who you were, it's who you are now. We weren't getting a lot of calls for shows. And then George and I started talking, let's do a Worldview 2, and he says, I got 15 songs already. I'm like, wow, well, let me hear them. Let's talk about it. And then Dino Elefante got involved, and we did Worldview 2 and just released that a few months ago. And that's doing really well.
Yeah.
We have 3 shows in Nashville the end of June. And then just, doing shows here and there, and doing shows with Warrior here and there.
The Worldviews, even Worldviews, I think an extension of Sacred. I really, because your vocals to me are similar there.
Mm-hmm.
Different musicians, yes, but I think it carries on that torch really well. Even though you're still doing Sacred Warrior, I still think that the torch is there and passed.
Thanks,
Sacred Warrior, I think will still carry on, and I think with the stuff you're doing with Sacred Warrior that I've heard, it harkens back to Rebellion and Master's Command a little more than the other 2 albums.
Right.
Worldview carries on the last 2 albums, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
In my opinion, lyrically, anyways, and
right. Yeah.
And then Deny the Fallen, like I said, known John as long as I did, I was like, I was excited, and then when he said it's going to be harder, and I'm like, how's it going to be harder? and he's like, yeah, he told me that he had to help you learn some of the vocal ranges.
Oh yeah, man. I didn't know how to sing like that.
Right. And both those 2 albums were phenomenal too, especially for self-produced, man. Producing all the instruments with his and everything. I was like blown away when he first shared it with me, and then hearing the finished product when they were mastered and everything, I was like, wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a fun time.
So talking about Dino, I'm working on getting him and John both on the show at one point to discuss the Pachyderm years. So.
Oh yeah, George. You mean George and Dino?
Dino and John, the Elefante brothers.
Oh, Dino and John. Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. We just got to figure out a date in the future.
Let me just say this: getting them together. Good luck with that. I had to do John separate from Dino. In fact, I still haven't got Dino. We've been talking about it, but I had to do John separately. But they're never together, man, or very seldom. To get them to sit down for an hour or 2.
Right. I told him, I said, you all find a date. We'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
They both agreed to it. It's just like we said.
Yeah, they're good dudes too, man. They're good dudes.
That's what I've heard from a few people, and like I said, I just like I said, being in a Christian scene and following the Intense years, the Pachyderm years, and the metal that was in there, or hard rock. That was my core growing up as a teen and into my 20s. So looking back at that, like we're talking tonight, takes me back in time. And that's why I love the idea that I'm getting. First off, I started out with current musicians, And I'm like, interviewed Dale Thompson a few months ago, and I'm like, let me reach out to some of these legends and see if they'd be willing to do it, even though they don't like the term legends. I know you probably like, I'm not a legend. I'm a man of faith that plays rock and roll.
Yeah.
But I think you, like I said, you're a legendary voice through these bands. So what are your influences? If you talk about Jeff Tate's a little bit of your influence vocally, and it showed. What else is
no, not a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot. Jeff Tate was a huge influence on mine. But also pre-Jeff Tate, Elton John. I've always loved Elton John. Tom Jones. I don't know if you ever heard of Tom Jones.
Yep.
Yeah, I used to love the thickness in that guy's voice. Not unusual. I just like, gosh, man, that boy can sing.
Well, that's huge. He's been doing it for 70 years now at this point, I think.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I've always been
still out there touring. I'm like, wow.
I remember a few years ago, I saw him on, I think it was America's Got Talent. He came on there and sang that song, and I was like, boy, he ain't lost a lick, man. He still had it, And obviously Bowie, I love David Bowie, and Maiden, Jeff Tate, Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson. I was always a huge fan of his, and obviously Ronnie James Dio, big Dio fan.
Yeah,
those are the guys that What's that?
I said I'm getting ready to see Maiden for the first time in September. So
that's for the first time.
Last bucket list band. So it's still touring.
Yeah, man. No, those guys, I'll tell you what, man, they are amazing.
That's what I've heard. So what I can see on video. But they're playing the Louder Than Life Music Festival here in Louisville. So in September.
Oh, okay, good deal, man. Yeah.
But I'm not one to travel to shows. That's why I'd love to go. I'd love to go to Nashville, see you guys, or up to Mortal Fest. And Mortal Fest is 5 hours from Louisville, I think. Nashville's 3, but I'm the only one that listens to it that I know locally now that John's gone out of town.
Yeah, man.
To Mexico. But
hey, it's worth the drive, man.
Well, if I can find somebody, I'll try to be there. But I've got a Christian music festival next weekend up in near Kokomo, Indiana, which is another 3. It's 3 hours away, but it's 3 days. It's about 60 bands. Most of them are current bands, so I'm trying to mingle, and it's free.
Oh wow! Well, that's good.
But they've got the playing. What's that?
How'd they pull that off? Free concert?
They do they fundraise all year long. I think their goal was $40,000, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it is when you're doing that many bands. I mean, and trying to keep everybody. But anyways, their headliners are one night it's Disciple, who's been around for almost 35 years.
Yeah, man.
The Letter Black. What's that?
We've done a couple of shows with Disciple. Love those guys.
Like I said, they've been around for a good long while, which a lot of people don't realize. But anyways, the Letter Black are the 2 main headliners, and then there's rappers, there's some alternatives, some pop, but mostly it's hard rock and punk. A couple punk bands. You ever heard of Grave Robber?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they're playing one night. Great guys. Sean's been a huge support in my life over the last 15 years or so. If I need a prayer warrior, I'll contact Sean.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome.
So that's one thing I love about social media. I have been able to interact with people like yourself, even in messages.
Mm-hmm.
And just that's the positive of social media. We know how horrible it can be as well, but I've created a worldwide prayer circle. I can't complain about that.
That's important. That's important.
And right, and it's encouraging, especially when you're older as we are. Our circle dwindles down.
Oh yeah.
So
I know exactly what you mean.
and finding somebody and people local, that's the thing.
Yeah.
People that are local to us that we can meet up for dinner or call on occasion or say, hey.
And I'm sure John was one of those guys for you. He's that kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, before they moved, I mean, we were talking earlier. I'm in self storage, and him and Amy were were customers of mine as well.
Yeah. Didn't he rent one of your stores just to paint cabinets?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yep. He stored one of my facilities, that some of the kitchen cabinets that he was moving in and out to put in people's houses.
Yeah. He told me that.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
That I miss those guys, because they were always cool to see and do things with. And then Eric Kerr, Eric still lives local. I chat with him every once in a while, but I ain't seen him in a long time.
I need to call Eric. I haven't talked to him in a while. I love that guy. And Josh.
Yeah.
Josh is like a son to me too. I love that guy, man.
Well, all your kids, are talented,
Yeah.
Doing different things. So your son's what, Dylan?
Dylan, yep. Yeah. I actually have 5 sons. But Dylan's the one that everybody knows, because he's played Immortal Fest with me a couple of times, and he's come on. He's got his big band, and he's doing great music-wise. Then I have my other son, Mateo, who's starting to do really good in music. He's got a band called Girl Math. Yeah, it's really cool, real good stuff. And then just a lot of real cool stuff.
Yeah, I've got between me and my wife, I've got 3 stepchildren and two blood daughters. So four girls and 1 boy. So, and he's in the middle. So
Steve McGowan, you still on, buddy? How you doing? If you're there, buddy.
Yeah, he's just messaged a minute ago. So yeah, Steve's on.
Yeah.
I had him and Weapons of God on here a couple months ago. Great guys. Yeah.
Love that guy, man. Love all them guys.
Yeah. So I mean, I've met a lot of people through doing this, and I feel I'm blessed with doing this, and like I said, reaching out to guys like yourself, getting to know a little bit about the history of the business that I don't know. Like, I've learned quite a few things that even interviews before I'd never seen or heard you say or any of the guys say anything about, which is awesome.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, that's good, man.
So, I mean, you're getting ready to do 3 shows with Worldview. You got new song, Invincible, with Sherry Mancaruso. I can't remember is that how you say her last name? Mancaruso?
Crystal Mancaruso. So here's the thing with that. So Crystal, the whole Invincible thing. Invincible was one of the songs for the video we just recently released. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
So Worldview, we didn't have enough time. We were supposed to play Immortal, but we didn't have enough time to get together and rehearse. So George had been working with Crystal on her solo album.
Oh.
And they were going to call it Crystal. And then I'm not sure why George ended up calling her solo project Invincible. And I'm like, that's going to throw a lot of people off, because they're going to think it's Worldview because of our song Invincible and the title track. But it's actually really cool, because Crystal, her solo project, she's doing this. I've heard the songs. They're great. She's a great artist, and she's going to do really well. But she's still part of Worldview. But for that show, for that festival, it's going to be Crystal as Invincible, her own project.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, but I did see that, and I was like,
Yeah.
Oh, and she's coming from a long stream of metal family there.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. And her drummer is actually Joey, her husband.
Yeah, and he's playing with Barren Cross now.
Correct. Right? Yep.
See, I am following a little bit where everything's going now that the rest of me, Steve, there. So.
Yeah, man. No, I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
For both of them.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm working. That's another one I'm working on. It's just timing. Because like I said, a lot of people are on Central Time, or I've got people out on West Coast. I'm like, let's try to see if we can figure this out. But
that's the one I struggle with when I do people from the East Coast. So we make it work, man. We make it work.
And that's what I tell them. I said I'll look ahead, see what my schedule looks like, because I work Monday through Friday, and it's kind of hard to skip out of work for, hey, I need to take an hour lunch.
Yeah. So I've done it. Yeah.
So going back to your podcast, what made you decide to do your podcast?
That's funny you should ask that. I love talking to people. And I know a lot of people, a lot of artists. And what I wanted to do initially was like, you know what? I'm going to create a platform where people can, like when I do live shows, can go on and talk to whoever I have on, because I'll use Billy Sheehan, for example. A lot of his fans may never get to meet him, but through my show, they can actually type in questions and talk to him. And when they're typing the questions and I'm reading them, you know, I get hundreds of them. I did just like, they're just going. So I got to pick and choose the questions that I'm going to ask. And I got to a point, my wife was in her studio. And I said, baby, you pick the questions that are good, because she's not focusing on the conversation. She's focusing on the questions. And so she'd pop them in there, you know.
Right.
And I really liked that you could have perfect example. I wish I would have had an opportunity ever to talk to Jeff Tate back in the day, but there was no way I could have, you know. And now through social media, you can reach out to people and they're going to respond. Rudy Sarzo, I reached out to him. He responded, yeah, I'll do it. You know, Todd LaTorre, hey, Todd, yeah, I'll do it, you know. And what I've noticed is initially when I started doing it, one of the very first questions their PR people ask you, well, how many subscribers do you have? How many views do you get? And when I was first starting, I'd have 30, 40 views. You know, I had maybe 100 subscribers after a few weeks, you know. And it wasn't until I started getting like over 1,000 subscribers, and a lot of my videos are getting 1, 2, 3, 4,000 views, that they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, they'll be on. And it started with that. So because I love talking to people was why I started. Because like main reason I'm here, like I told you, I did a podcast earlier, but I'm on here talking with, you know, I love talking. I love talking about the Lord. I love talking music. And initially, like I said, I was only going to do it just so I can interview artists, so people will get to know. And what I do on my show, and you've watched several of them, you said, I don't ask the same questions everybody asks. I go behind the scenes. I change it up. I do a lot of funny clips. I do a lot of stuff that everybody else isn't doing. And therefore, I get a lot of people that say to me, you're right, bro. I love being on your show because it was so different, you know, and that's where it's grown, because I like to laugh. I love to talk to people, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
Right. And that's pretty much the same here. You know, I want to know these stories. I want people to know these people as a human being.
Yes, man. Yes.
You know, even when you had like Doug Pinnick a few weeks ago, most Christians wouldn't want to touch him. Why? He's flesh and blood. He bleeds just like me and you.
Yeah, man.
We can agree to disagree on certain things.
Yeah.
If you're a musician like yourself, or a fan. I mean, I've been a fan of King's X since the late 80s.
Yeah, man.
You know, music speaks regardless of who's performing it.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've seen that going back to Roger Martinez earlier. Yeah. You know, he's completely, before he passed, right, it was like gave up on him. But his music that he put out as Vengeance Rising Core 4, because there were supposed to be some albums after the fact that I never heard and everything. Right. But those albums still speak to me, no matter what he was believing 5 years after those were released.
I think I remember, let me see, who was it? It was Kurt Vanderhoof from Metal Church.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw that interview I did with him.
I haven't watched it yet, but it's on my list to watch.
He said to me, he says, Ray, you know what? He goes, I don't have to like all these genres of music that people are singing, and I don't even have to like what they're saying. He goes, but I can't get mad at you if you're writing catchy songs and good hooks and good this and that. And he goes, and I'm in it for the music, you know. And then you have all the Christians say, well, and I agree to a certain degree. Yeah, but what are the lyrics saying? What are the lyrics saying? You know, well, for me, with Doug, and really with any artist who has fallen away from the Lord, it's, for me, it was more, hey, listen, this is what I said to Doug. This is how I pitched it to him. I said, Doug, you walked away from God. The church abandoned you. Christians abandoned you. I have a platform where you can come on here. You're not going to get judged. I'm not going to judge you.
Nope.
I'm not going to argue with you. And I'm not going to try to prove you wrong. I just want to know, like so many people want to know, what happened with King's X? What happened with Doug Pinnick? And I don't want to hear it. I've heard it from everybody else. I want to hear it from your mouth.
Yep.
And he's like, you know what? I'll do it. And that was it.
It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't judge him. You didn't disrespect him. You let him, like you said, a platform to say what he needed to say to who he really needed to say it to.
Yeah.
Because us as fans, as a Christian, looking at them as somebody not the wrong word, but we praised because we thought they were Christian in the secular scene.
Right.
You know, we deserved some form of closure if that's what you needed.
Absolutely.
You know, and like I said, I loved that interview. I mean, it wasn't eye opening because I knew where Doug was at.
Yeah.
And because I've read his book, you know, so I knew going into the interview where a lot of that was coming from.
Right.
But so many people that we know lost that faith in him as a human. And why? We're not supposed to judge.
They were looking to Doug to be Jesus.
Yep.
I mean, so to speak, you know what I'm saying?
They put him on a pedestal, you know?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And you look at, the other guys you've interviewed, Billy, great interview. You didn't really, you touched a little bit of faith talk, but you didn't pressure it. Rudy, Rudy is a believer.
Right.
But he's out there chugging away with Quiet Riot and a couple other bands here and there.
Yeah.
Great musician, both of them.
Yeah.
You know, Todd Latour. I mean, he don't talk. He don't want. I mean, you didn't push buttons. That's what I love about your show. You come in level-headed, have a conversation like we're having right now.
Yep.
And like you're almost best friends that you've known for 10 years, even though you haven't.
Right, man.
You know, and that's what I want. That's my conversation. I want to have a conversation with Ray the human, not and Ray to tell the stories. This is what we were doing 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And what we were doing.
Yeah.
Magic Command or so on. You know, that's what I want. You know, I don't want. And then, but we know you're a Christian and we know your heart. You know, you share your heart, even on those interviews, you share your heart, but it's respectful to their beliefs or their thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, and
the great thing. Yeah. And the great thing is when I stop recording, I always tell them to hang around because I'm never going to put somebody on the spot. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I will tell them, most of them, now, we're cool, but I just want you to know you got people praying for you. And I'm a firm believer, that there's only one way. You know what I'm saying? And this is it, and anytime you want to talk about it or whatever, I'm right here for you, no judgment, no nothing. And I find that I have more respect from people like that because you know what? I get a lot of crap from Christians when I say this, and it's biblical. I'm not their judge. All I can do is live it by example and share from my mouth, my testimony, and what I believe to be true gospel, which comes right out of the Bible. You can choose to believe it or not. I'm not going to judge you either way. I've presented it to you, and the rest is up to you.
Yep.
And for me, that's the best way, man. That's the best way.
Well, the best testimony is your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be out of your mouth. It's how you live and show others. It's your everyday walk. And if you one thing behind one closed door and another thing behind another closed door, then you're a hypocrite.
Absolutely. Yep. And you know what's really cool? That this will help you with your show. And I say it often in my show is that I make people feel comfortable where they let their guard down. I can't tell you how many people have said two things on my show. Three things. I'm going to tell you three things they say. Number one, I have never told anybody this before, but they feel comfortable enough sharing it on my show. You'll see when I don't know if you saw the Jamie Rowe one. He's been interviewed 1,000 times. Wait till you see that one, bro. What he shares on my show will blow your mind. Stuff that I already know because him and I have been friends for years. But again, they feel comfortable enough to share something on my show that they've never told anybody. Why? Because I always tell them like this. This is not an interview. We're going to sit down and have a conversation. And you do it as such. It's a conversation, man. So when people are having a conversation with you and they're feeling comfortable, they're going to tell you things that they don't tell nobody. I made a joke with Michael today when I was interviewing him. He shared something with me and I said, don't worry, I'm not going to tell anybody. Of course, it's recorded and we laughed about it, but again, you let your guard down because you feel comfortable.
Right.
So when you learn, not that you don't, I mean, you and I feel like we're having a great conversation now, but the more you make people feel good about that, the more people are going to open up to you. Number 2 is be a great listener like you are doing right now. When I first started, I was cutting people off. Jimmy Brown said, hey, let me talk, man. Because he'd say something, I kept cutting him off. He's like, hey, you interviewing me or what? Let me talk, and I had to learn that, and the number 3 thing, and this is my wife reminds me all the time. And I know you'll get it when I say this, but she always says to me, it ain't all about you. Right. My podcast, it's not about me. It's about what God's going to do, how he's going to use it, and what he's going to do. Because I can tell you the last 3 episodes I've recorded, I have my MacBook right here in front of me with all my notes, but I never go to it. I go to it, but we never end up there. I just did one with 3 people from The Biggest Loser from season 8. Danny Cahill, the girl, Tracy, who died on the show and all that. And we started out just talking about the show. We ended up talking about the Lord and the bonds that they created and just some stuff that's just like God took over. You know what I mean?
I've had some of those for sure. And the only plans when I get on is to know a little bit about you. Yeah. And where I've had a ministry on here. I've had some artists that I didn't have really much clue about. I knew musically, but other than that, I didn't know anymore.
Sure, yeah.
So start out a conversation and like we did. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself. And if it's somebody like yourself, we'll go back in history. We'll look at where I found you.
Right.
And that way that history leads up to where you are now. That's why I brought up the podcast at the end, because like I said, I love your show. And that's not blowing smoke. That's honest. I mean, like I said, I love the way you do it, and I'm trying to do something similar in my own little way, having a conversation, Act like, we've just met 10 minutes before the show. Hey, this is what I'm looking for. Then we'll just go from there. Wherever the conversation leads. That's why I told you, you asked me how long I take, whatever the conversation takes.
Yeah.
I talked to Dale Thompson for almost 2 hours, and I didn't even realize it until I was done.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how that happens? Todd LaTorre, Queensryche, 3 hours. Metal Church, I think, no, we didn't go quite that long, but same thing, man. You just get talking and you're like, Ken Tamplin and I, we talk for even after we stopped recording, we're talking and talking and talking. And it's crazy because, again, you're having a conversation. When you're hanging out with your friends in your backyard or at your pool or watching a football game or something, you just keep talking. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing. That's a good place to be. And I wanted to be different. I've seen a lot of interviews. Everybody I interview, I will watch an interview or 2 of interviews that they've had because I want to see how other people are doing it. Nobody's doing it like I'm doing it. And I say that in God's grace and grateful to him. But I don't want to be like anybody else.
Oh, you were talking about PR earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Public relations. I've got a few artists I've reached out to, and it's like, you need to reach out to my PR. And I'm like, they're going to give me a list of 50 questions that I have to limit in. And I'm like, that's not how I roll. I want a free flow. I want, we'll talk about new music. Fine. We'll get to that point. But
well, you'll find that once you make a name for yourself, it's not going to be like that. They're going to say, hey, send me a couple clips or send me an episode. How long does it take? What time are you thinking? And I'll get with the artist and then we'll let you know. Yeah. That's pretty much it now. They don't ask you what questions you're going to ask. They don't.
But like I said, I've ran into a few of those. So it's like, and I'm like, and some of these people are not big. These people are not on labels or anything like that, but they still got a big PR company doing all their legwork. And I'm like, Bite my tongue.
that PR company's probably hurting them.
You know, I mean, I'll go to, like we were talking, I'm going to a festival next week, and I'm going to see some of the bands for sure, but more than anything, I go and network.
Yeah.
You know, especially with these younger bands that don't have the following for 30 years, like your 35 plus years of yourself or more.
Sure, man.
You know, I mean, some of these bands have been around 5 years, but their following's 2,000 people. You know, you had the three main bands that you've worked with.
Yeah.
You've got 50,000.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, like I told you, I've got between all my platforms, I got 5,000 followers. Is that on one platform? No, but sure. It's built over time and trust. You know, I've built that trust to be able to book now every week through the summer, which just blew my mind that everybody. I'm like, okay,
yeah, it's a good feeling, right?
There's something right.
Yeah, man.
But I mean, you've named a couple of people I would love, like you said, Michael. I'd love to interview Michael. I've got him to do a shout out for me. And
nice.
him and Perry both. Love to interview Doug, but like I said, I've got to figure out those channels to get.
Sure.
I mean, because I know Michael does have to go through a PR, or at least through his wife, to get.
No, it's a PR guy.
Yeah. So because she pointed me that one time I went to, where'd I go? Somewhere, and I wanted something extra signed, and I had to go through her to get it signed at a show.
Oh yeah.
Because it was just something extra.
Yeah, sure.
But anyways, like I said, he's on a label, you know, whereas most of the majority of the people I'm interviewing are on a label per se that's helping them get their name out there. They're not on they're not printing the albums for these artists.
Right.
Most of the bands are recording stuff independently. Or now you're like Worldview, you're on Elefante's subsidiary, helping push it a little bit. So anyways, we said we'd talk for an hour, so we're coming up on that. But where do we see your Worldview is the thing now? Do you still see Worldview being busy in 3 or 4 years? I know you felt different.
Yeah.
Over the years.
Yeah, no, I do because we're not touring a lot. We're not doing a lot of shows. If I can, between Warrior and Worldview, if I can keep it down to maybe 10 shows a year, I'm good with that. You know, because I mean, let's be clear about one thing. I love performing. I love it. I love being on stage. My wife says I'm whatever she says because I love it. You know, I always tell her I'd love to walk out into a football stadium and do a halftime show. She's like, "You're crazy." I'm like, I would love that. You know, I don't get nervous in front of people. You know, when I get nervous when there's 3 people in front of me and they say, "Sing a song," I'm like, no, you know, not doing it. But no, it's for me. I love it. You know, but Worldview, we're actually working on another record right now. And Sacred Warrior, we're finally working on some songs. We've had some songs that we've been really struggling with, you know, a bunch of old guys trying to write modernly with still keeping the old feel, you know, and we're actually starting to get it now, you know, because we weren't, for example, like Striper, they're writing year after year after year. So they're in that zone, right? We're not there. So it's taken us forever to get, you know, 2 or 3 songs, but they're finally coming together now. We're going to finally be able to release those. Is it going to be a full album? Not at the moment, but is there a possibility? Yeah. Excuse me. But we are, like I said, we are Worldview. We're working on Worldview 3 now. And those songs are coming out just incredible. Dino Elefante, when I was tracking vocals, I remember for, what song was it? Beware the Wolves. Me and George are there. Dino hadn't even arrived yet. And I'm singing and I'm like, here, I got this. I'm feeling this, you know, welcome home to the neighborhood. And Dino just happens to come in when I'm tracking that. And I lay down that whole first verse. And George is like, man, that's pretty badass, huh? And Dino's like, yeah, that's nice. He goes, now try this. So then he's like, try it. And he told me how to try it, which is what we put on the record. And I'm glad he did because he pushed me.
Right.
You know, I got to a point where I was kind of comfortable singing it the way I was, He's like, oh, that's nice. Try this, so that helps. And that's why I think is a big factor between him and George and myself, and really challenging me and challenging George in the writing and the producing. And then with Dino just helping out, it's just been great. It's been great.
I'm gonna ask maybe 2 or 3 more little questions going back to the recording after we got some stuff done. If you had to pick your favorite Sacred Warrior songs that you have, or that songs that you have to make sure, not looking at, take the fans out of the equation, what songs that you either enjoy performing or that are just your 4 or 5 top songs?
My number one, Madman. I love doing that song. For me, in the climax of that song, where that bridge is, when we go into the deep inside, you can find the answers. When it comes out of that, and now you can be free. When I perform that, I put my arms out and I get a body rush, man. It's like, I just
let the air out.
Dude, I'm getting goosebumps down my legs right now thinking about performing that song live. I just love that. Rebellion, another song I love doing. Holy Holy, obviously. Love ending every show with that. Doesn't matter where we are, we end with that song. And probably I would have to say, if I had to pick one more, Remember Me. Only because of the lyrical content of that, the thief on the cross looking at Jesus, right? Hey, please remember me, and I would say that's probably my top songs.
That's good variety there, almost, really.
Yeah.
So what about Worldview?
Worldview, dude. Any of them really, but probably Babylon. I love doing Babylon live. I love doing The Last Cry live. I love doing I guess Invincible and Beware the Wolves, because I just like the drive that they have, and then the keyboards and then the way they end is just real great live performing songs, So I would say those.
I'd love to see all those live.
Come to Nashville, brother. Come to Nashville.
So, all right, we'll close it up with, where can people find all these bands, your personal information, podcast, and everything?
So my podcast is on YouTube. Is It Wrong Podcast with Rey Parra, or you can get them. I post them on my Facebook every time I do them. Worldview, I'll send you the link. No, this is live, so it doesn't matter. Worldview band, Worldview music band. I can't remember. I'm having an adult moment here. But
that sucks.
Yeah, if you go on worldviewmusic.com, that's it, worldviewmusic.com. Sacred Warrior, right now, you're not going to find anything but our old stuff. Sacredwarrior.net is our old website. You can go on YouTube anywhere, just Google the band names and stuff. And then also for our merch, actually for Warrior and for my podcast, is Anchor Merchandising. I'm sure you're familiar with Anthony Gober. He does all the merchandise.
There's a lot of bands in merchandise.
Yeah, man. Yeah. He's a busy man, bro. I remember he was telling me, I got to buy a bigger house. And he did. He bought one in Nashville, man. Giant house, and he's doing it, man. The Lord's blessing him.
Yeah.
He's doing a good thing, man. Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to be able to find old shirts that you remember from the past.
Oh man, yeah, no doubt.
That's pretty cool. And then even bands that are no longer actually together, but they're still out pushing. They're doing merchandise with
man. Yeah, so, you'll have it.
Yeah, he has a lot, and then I'm going to get to meet him finally in person. He's going to be at the festival, Kingdom Come Festival, in Greentown, Indiana, next weekend.
Good deal.
He's going to be there selling merch there, so get to meet him.
Give him a big hug for me. Yeah, give him a big hug for me.
All righty. Well, Ray, it's been a pleasure meeting you this evening.
Thank you, brother.
Catch up with you again sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. Everybody, you can find Radio Oz with Metal Mike on Facebook, on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and playlists on Spotify. Great seeing Ray. Next week, we have Miggy from the group Relent as we lead into Kingdom Come Festival, where they will be performing. Everyone have a great week. We'll catch up soon.
Hold that thought. You're going to have the guys from Relent down there?
Yeah, next week.
I love those guys, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've got coming soon. We've got Relent, The Protest, John Warren that was in Killed by Cain, currently in Moonshine Zombies. Les Carlson's coming in July. Clank is in July. Greg Minear and Jim Chafin from Crucified in August. Paul Rohrback from Grandma Train, Blood Good, One Bad Pig, Triton in September so far.
Nice, man. Paul's a real cool dude.
Yeah. So
all them guys, yeah, man.
So I've got a good lineup so far for the rest of the summer. I've got a few dates still to fill that I'm waiting for follow-ups. So I'm looking forward to the summer. I appreciate everybody's support.
Yeah, man.
Ray, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
You after we get done here.
All right, buddy.
Thank you again.
You got it. Peace.
Peace out.